Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Can France win the World Cup this summer? They're one of the favorites to win in Russia, but can they really do it? They bottled it in Euro 2016 on home soil, and this is their chance for redemption. The road to Russia starts here, and their first big test is against Colombia in a friendly. Could Deschamps get a starting 11 right? Who would be in that starting 11? Would Paul Pogba get a chance to rectify his poor season? Who would start up front? Giroud, Benzema, Mbappe? A lot of questions, but don't worry. Here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to briefly break down how France coped against Colombia. So France against Colombia. France, obviously one of the World Cup favorites, and they had to really prove it after what happened at Euro 2016. Some people believe that this is their time to step forward in a major competition and once again prove that they're the cream of the crop. Colombia poses a great threat to them because they are one of the top sides in South America, not renowned as a Brazil or an Argentina, but they're just in the second pack with the Uruguays. And you have to look at them as a really good test to show whether France have hit that curve, moved on from Euro 2016, and are looking to mount a proper challenge this summer at the World Cup in Russia. A lot of players that could be selected. It must be difficult for Deschamps to find the right XI. He has to look for the balance, which players work well with one another, and this was a great opportunity for him. They did start a strong lineup, Giroud and Griezmann up front, Lemar and Mbappe on the flanks, Matuidi and Conte in midfield. What went right? What went wrong? You look at Colombia, essentially they were 4-2-3-1 with the ball in the first half, but without it they were more of a 4-1-4-1. And what they really did well was they stopped France from playing, and it starts from pressing the midfield. Falcao kind of sat up high at the start of the game, looking to press the center backs, not really aggressively, but just looking to prevent them from stepping forward. You had Aguilar and Juan James step into the midfield to press Conte, to press Matuidi, to ensure that they couldn't really get anything going. They're not renowned for their passing. Conte's more of a ball winner, energetic dynamo in midfield. Matuidi likes to charge into the left channel. He likes to bomb forward. So it's still weird that they're playing in a 2, but they were pressed out of the game, and then what happened was that Griezmann, who was supposed to drop off a bit deeper, was pressed by Sanchez, which left a 2v1 up front. At times, Griezmann would get frustrated and try and move over alongside Giroud, probably hoping that they could play long balls and he could play off Giroud or get onto a flick on. That just allowed Sanchez to patrol the center of the pitch, and he ensured that nothing really got through those areas. France, in general, just struggled because there was a lack of movement up front. No real runs into the channels. Everyone was looking at ball to feet. Giroud was checking in. Griezmann was checking in. When Mbappe played a bit higher, he was checking in. At times, they did look like a 4-3-3, and it was just checking in. No real movement. Whereas you look at Colombia, for instance, when they did get the ball, you would see James drop a bit deeper to try and get on it, try to influence the game from that position. You'd see Muriel spin into the left channel on a few occasions. There was just variety to what they were doing from an offensive standpoint, whereas for France, not much there. And you have to question, they were the better side theoretically for the opening 20 minutes. Where did they find the edge? What really changed? You think about it, and it just took one simple move, because when you look at it, out of the game, out of the game. If he's there, he's out of the game. If he's there, he's out of the game. What happened was that it took a bit of movement from Thomas Lemar to make the difference. He's drifted into a center position, and what happened was that he forced the player out. He allowed Lucas Digne to drive forward, picked up the ball, made it 4v3, played the ball in behind the defense. Digne was tracked well. The cross was poor, but Ospina pushed it into the path of Giroud, who was able to tap it in for 1-0. But again, it just showed something different. Lemar, who was kind of pushed out of the match or marked out of the match on the flank, was able to do that, and throughout the game he played a bit more narrow. He played narrow. You saw Mbappe hold the touchline, Fabro staying tight to him, and now Colombia had an issue because it was 4v3 in midfield. They didn't really know what to do. Did they bring Urube to follow him and track him out? That's not what they wanted to happen. So what did end up happening was that when Lemar did push into those positions, you'd see Sanchez kind of step to him. That was key. But what Lemar would do eventually was drop a bit deeper, and Sanchez wasn't willing to follow him there. So they ensured that they kept Sanchez there. He stayed between the lines, because if you have a attacking player dropping a bit deeper that doesn't really have that wide range of passing, it doesn't really affect Colombia's shape. So what had happened there was that Matuidi would also drop deeper, so Falcao would kind of pick him up, or pick up the deepest midfielder. Then you'd see bam, bam, and then if Griezmann dropped in, bam, and if not, they'd shift them off. And Colombia weren't really threatened in that aspect. They were pretty good in central areas. They ensured that France didn't really dominate that area with driving runs, with a bit of creativity. Nothing really went on in that zone. They did have space for the fullbacks to get forward. Digne did get that one opportunity that he kind of created a goal, but it wasn't legitimate threat. It was just an Ospina error. And then on the other flank, Muriel isn't renowned for tracking back, so there was a lot of space for Sidibe to get forward. He didn't look confident getting forward or trying to push forward into advanced areas. Perhaps he was a bit cautious and warned about the pace of Muriel, who isn't the greatest striker, but could threaten that zone and drive into those areas, so that was pivotal. That didn't happen as much. So you have to think about, how did France score the other goal? Where did they really get forward? Well, one thing was that Fabro for Colombia was getting forward, and when you do that, you do pay the price when you have a player like Mbappe on the right. That led to a goal. It was a situation where he did drive forward, lost possession. France broke superbly. It was some brilliance from Mbappe to hold off two defenders. The counterattack was on. A lovely second goal for France. But that was the theme in the second half for France. The first half for France was the fact that Mbappe on two other occasions was able to charge into the space behind him. There was the one odd time that Griezmann did make the run on the counterattack beyond Sanchez and forced Ospina to a save. And there was another opportunity where Fabro got tight. He turned him with ease and seeked out that Giroud run across the box. Again, these were just a handful of times when they did make those darting runs into different positions, and it led to something. And it was great that they found an outlet out the right. They had movement up front. That chance led to Ospina getting an opportunity. Giroud almost got the header on, but Mina cleared it. And that was France's first half in a nutshell. Then you have to think about how France coped with what Colombia were doing. They kind of sat off deep. It was a bit weird in the sense that Yuri Mina, they didn't want him to get forward, so Giroud stuck to him. Griezmann stuck on Sanchez, and then it was kind of the same thing in that, the same sort of defending in that respect, where they had those two. They had the midfielders pressing the midfielders. Then you had Falcao up front. And then that was basically what happened. They didn't really create any chances. And when you look at the goal that they concede, it's just a simple error from Lloris, where Muriel picks up an overhit cross and delivers another cross into the box. And Lloris doesn't judge it well, beats him. They go into the half 2-1. It gives Colombia a lifeline. No real significant changes were made in going into the second half. And what changed there? Well, France just kind of fell asleep, but you have to give Colombia credit. And this is a big indictment on what we could expect on France and what they could really be when you look at it and break it down to a T. What did they do in the second half? Well, they simply just pressed better. They were more energetic. They stepped in front of their markers. They pressed higher up the pitch. They did have an opportunity where Sidibe did deliver a cross into the box. Or not Sidibe, he didn't deliver across the box, but a cross was delivered into the box, and Muriel ran off Sidibe, unmarked in the box, should score, doesn't score. That's obviously pivotal. But when you look at France from a nutshell, this is what was happening. You just had pressing from the front. That was pivotal. Griezmann trying to drop deep. And they pegged them in. France never really tried to play out the back, especially on goal kicks when this did happen. But when they did try and play out, they were in trouble. You saw Varane dispossessed, and that should have led to a goal on the edge of his box, but Lloris made a big save. And then you look at the goal, it's N'Golo Kanté who's dispossessed in midfield, and then Sanchez picks up the ball and slides it to James, breaking and beyond. What also happened in the second half was that James moved to the right, Muriel to the left. James was dropping deeper into these areas, into midfield, making up the numbers in midfield, trying to get on the ball, but that allowed areas to get forward, to drop, and that was kind of what they had, that kind of shape. Fullback was forward. They were looking to really dominate the center of the pitch, but when you look at it from that aspect, it's James who broke in, found Falcao unmarked in the box, 2-2, changes were made, no real differences, or the theme of the game, the pattern of the game didn't really change, and then Colombia got the winner, a penalty conceded, a sloppy challenge in the box from Umtiti, and you have to look at this France side and say there was no real variation up front. They got opportunities. Lemar kind of changed the game. Mbappe was the sole creator on the right-hand side. He was the one that was involved in their best chances. The second half comes, they fall asleep. Colombia start pressing from the front. They make mistakes. Varane's dispossessed around the box, leads to a Lloris save. Then you look at Conte being dispossessed, it leads to a goal. You look at the goal, the first goal that they concede, Lloris with a bad mistake. The last goal, Umtiti with a bad mistake. And when you look at this France side and you really break it down, just a lack of experience. They don't have a tempo setter in midfield, a lack of variation and movement up front, and this is a great indicator to show that Deschamps has a lot of work to do if he wants to get this side ready to win a World Cup, because at the moment, a lot of talent, but he doesn't have, or he hasn't found the right pieces to fit into a starting 11. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.